I'm remiss. I haven't really called us to order, but this is the Leverett Subcommittee of Judiciary and Non-Civil. Mr. Chairman, if you wouldn't mind just open us with a quick invocation.
Everybody bow your heads. Lord Jesus, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all your blessings. Thank you for letting us make it through this halfway part of the week. Lord, we just ask that you be with us here during these proceedings and let us do what will be pleasing to your will, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we've got a number of folks here who want to speak to Representative Townsend's bill, but I thought we might go ahead and let Representative Cameron present his bill first, because I anticipate that will take less time. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let's see which mic you're at over there. All right, you.
Thank you. This is a bill that I brought 3 years ago that we passed out of the House and went to that bill that came out of the Lookout Mountain Judicial District, where a situation happened where a young lady was mistreated inappropriately by step-grandfather, and that was not covered under the state incest law. So that's the amendment to the law, to the code, to include the step-grandparent, step-grandchild relationship. That's it.
All right, that was a nice, succinct presentation.
Yeah,
Are there any questions from the committee, or the subcommittee, I should say? Mr. Chairman?
Just real brief. Representative Cameron, thank you again. How many years does this make it that you've introduced this?
It's 3 years. So this will be fourth. And this is just something, you know, those things that kind of gnaw at you at about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. This is one of those things that this young lady, I can't imagine what she went through or what others go through, and there's a loophole in the law that we can tighten up pretty succinctly here, and maybe prevent some other cases in the future or penalize people who engage in that kind of behavior.
Okay.
So,
And we passed this out of committee last year.
no, we didn't hear it last year in committee.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, well, Mr. Chairman, I was so remiss in my duties as subcommittee chair last year, I forget. Do we still try to do a motion on these if we wish to pass them to the full committee?
I believe that's what happened. You forgot everything.
I forgot everything. I did. All right. So does anyone, yeah, the chair will entertain a motion do pass at this time, if there is such a motion.
Move to pass.
We have a motion and a second by the, no, we have some more members over here. Okay, good. Is there any further discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second to move do pass. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed like sign. All right, fourth time's a charm, Representative Cameron.
Thank you. I'll be for the full committee.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now I can go on to my other 15 meetings today. And I second bill in 10 minutes, so, thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, House Bill 968. We'll now take that bill up. Rick, if you want to come present the bill to the committee, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everybody else, thank you, committee members. Appreciate you being here for the committee hearing, and appreciate everybody here for it. First, come to you because, as you know, we did this a couple years ago, and it started off, and it still is a constituent-based issue. It's not something I heard from others or a lobbyist group or industry or whatever else. I had two people affected back home. One died. One also, eventually, it was even a halfway house. He was encouraged to take kratom to get off opioids, as people are sometimes, and that made it worse. He wound up in a mental health institution, and now he's homeless in Florida, and they can't find him. So that saga, unfortunately, sad tragedy, and it's true. It's happening as we speak. The latest update was about 2 months ago. I got from the family, and I keep in touch with them regularly. That family are actually friends of mine as well. So this comes from the heart. This comes from constituents based what's happened. Basically, I'm asking for an all-out ban. Last time I fell short during the process. Understood and respected the process. But unfortunately, in the time being since it was instituted last January, we did pass some laws and regulations, tighten it up. My estimate, and it's just an estimate, it's not a professional version because I'm not a professional data person or can keep track of it, But there's still quite a few manufacturers I know of, not adhering to the law, and the enforcement issue is an issue, so we're not keeping Georgians safe. The industry is not cleaning itself up. There's not enough research out there. Some of the research the University of Florida is doing is coming through. University of Georgia is doing research as well. It's starting to happen. I've talked to researchers, and still, after all that, we're still at this time, you still can't prevent somebody walking to a convenience store or a vape shop or a head shop or whatever else you want to call it, buy something, and you got to read the label, and for them to know, is this safe for me? You got it on there. We've got laws on there about how much what chemicals are allowed. A certain part of, I'll mispronounce it, but atrazanine, 7-OH, or metrogenine. Some people call it metrogena, hydrogena. What amounts you're allowed in there because of the natural leaf substance. But still, you have people going above that. So you have people walking off the street not knowing, don't even know it's dangerous. Don't know you can't mix it with blood pressure meds. And I'm hearing this from research. You can't mix it with seizure medicines. There's no professional help at the counter. There's not a pharmacist there to say, hey, you're on blood pressure medicine, Joe. Don't do that. You may work out every day, but you can't take it if you're on blood pressure meds. I'm sorry. Kids now, 30 years old, are taking blood pressure meds just to prevent it. And so it's gotten a little better with the new laws, regulations. And I appreciate everybody who is enforcing it, who's trying to enforce it. It's gotten a little better, but not everybody's cleaned up their act. The bad actors, unfortunately, some of the manufacturers, not all of them, because a lot of them has cleaned up their act. And there's some in this room that's probably cleaned up their act. And I respect that and I appreciate that. But the ones that haven't, probably 30 to 40% of them who haven't cleaned up their act, they're saying, catch me if you can. Find me, whatever high misdemeanor is. You know I'm not going to do any jail time because I'm first offender, got a good lawyer. You can't come after me. Just find me. I've got the money to pay you off, and then we'll straighten up so I don't get a felony. And so that's got to change. And they've had years, over 20 years, to do research out there. Still not enough research out there. And so that's why the ban's necessary. I've got good people on the other side, friends, that disagree, and I understand that and respect that. But it's one of those where we've got to keep Georgians safe. And you'll hear some people today give you accounts of what's happened. And I talked to a Marine. I'm not going to mention his name, and if he wants me to, next time I will. But he emailed all of us. And I called him back. He's a retired Marine, and he said, hey, Kratom's been good for me. And so I talked to him. I said, tell me how it's helped you. He talked about the natural leaf. He talked about how he's bought chemistry equipment to get the right dose for him. I mean, he's went all out and studied the chemistry of this drug. I said, let me ask you a question. If your neighbor Joe down the street goes to a local convenience store or vape shop and buys kratom off the shelf, what are you going to do? I'm going to say, tell him don't take it because he doesn't know what's in it. This guy's done research. He's put a lot of time and money to make sure what he's taking is safe. So how do we protect those people? He wasn't sure. And him and I talked together. I mean, I understand that. I do. That's the problem. I understand that. We've got people out there taking things. I called it a wild, wild west last time. Dr. Lopez from Georgia Poison Control, he was the head of it, still is, and he couldn't make it today, but someone else is here from Georgia Poison Control. He called it Russian roulette. You grab the right bottle, you'll be okay. You grab the wrong bottle, you may not be okay. And there's documentation of that. That's the problem. So I'm going to say ban it. Some people will say, hey, why don't you just put it behind a pharmacy counter? Well, that's better than nothing. Or get it more strict. But if you want to restrict it, if you want to make it safe till we get some more research out there, ban it. Even if you have to put a sunset on it, ban it. That's the only way to make it safe for Georgia. And so I could talk more, but there's a lot of people behind me. I'll have more research from Georgia tomorrow. Dr. Norton apologized because of the ice storm. He didn't finish up his study on some of the research that's out there now, and he wanted to give you an update, I think, on what he was doing, too, at University of Georgia Pharmacy School. But I do commend UGA, and I know they do a lot of research in Florida for the kratom industry there but they do have some nice studies there as well. Some of them are limited. I'll tell you one study I read that was sent to me by some Kratom friends. I'm going to say friends because you're all in this professional atmosphere, right? And they sent it to me, but it started off with a larger study. 6 or 7 got eliminated right away because they had bad reactions. A few more got kicked off because of the medications they were taking. So they wound up with 10 healthy individuals that the kratom leaf was safe for. So 10 to 12 kratom leaves was safe for those 10 individuals out of the 18 to 24, I think, that was part of the study. I have to get those exact numbers for you. Those aren't good percentages, guys. To me, that's not a good, valid study. We need a larger study than that. So I appreciate your help, appreciate your time. I'm glad to answer more questions. Like I said, I can go on for 10 more, 30 more, 20 more minutes, but I think I better stop here and answer more questions. But thank you again.
Thank you, Representative. Just one question, because I don't do a lot of work in this area. You're proposing to add this to make it a Schedule 1 controlled substance, correct?
Alabama does that, correct, and some other states do that as well. And it's my understanding that that's what we tried for last time. We fell a little bit short of that, but that's what we'll be going for again. And it's a way where, if there's a way, I don't think you can schedule it, where we try to we got to watch out for the consumer so they don't get tagged with the felony or whatever else. I understand that, but I don't think there's a way to do that without. I mean, you have to schedule it. In other words, I think that's the only way to be able to ban it.
And just my understanding, that's why I want to grab the code. A Schedule 1 is drug or substance has a high potential for abuse, no currently accepted medical use in treatment in the United States, and there's a lack of accepted safety for use of the drug or other substance under medical supervision.
Correct, and the key there, it's considered a substance, but FDA, any of your major resource organizations, Mayo, Cleveland Clinic, all those will tell you the same thing. No, it's not safe. It's a drug concern, of course. I know feds talk about banning the 7-OH and piece and all the synthetic products, that's a good start. So they're doing that. But overall, yeah, and it's just, yeah, so that's kind of where it's at now.
So I'm assuming by putting it in Schedule 1, and I don't exactly know what the full impact of that is, are you, if it says it has no currently accepted medical use, then this is not, it's not a matter of making this where you have to get a prescription for it. It'd just be basically banned.
Correct. It'd be easy if you can just get a prescription for it. That'd be nice. But from my understanding, FDA doesn't count it as a medical supplement. Unfortunately, when you hear people testify today or talk about it, it talks about it helps them medically or whatever else. They can't call it when they sell it a medical substance. It's just called a substance. And so there's no
it's
recognized.
not something that could be really, there's not enough data, and it's not capable of currently being prescribed or
Unfortunately not.
Applied by a medical doctor.
Correct. And you can't, right now there's not. If there is, I don't know about it. I've checked with Ledge Council, I've checked with industry people and some other professionals who are on the other side of the table from me on this issue, and I respect that. And right now I don't see that as a stopgate. Really the only thing left is to really have to crank up the regulation piece where it's at now to make it better than what it is now, such as I talked about before, and really striking those penalties. We're just finding too many manufacturers willing. We thought the high misdemeanor first offense would catch their attention. Well, it did some of them. Great. They're good. They're good actors. They're playing by the rules. They're playing by the laws. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bad actors out there. They're not playing by the rules. They could care less about a fine, whether it's 10,000 or 100,000. They could care less. So
that's the reason for the Schedule 1 you're proposing to put it on Schedule 1.
It is. I mean, it's one of those where I probably shouldn't say this in the beginning, but even if we did a sunset on it to allow more research, 3 or 5 years, to make us do that research in the next 3 to 5 years, or put the onus on the manufacturers to pay institutions like University of Florida or Georgia or someplace like that to do that, where it's reliable and valid, and it could be proven not to be skewed toward who pays for the research. That's the issue, because every now and then you get somebody pay for the research. Well, let me get this research. You know, we know which way it wants to go. But luckily, two of the leading people I know are at least valid and reliable. We want to make sure it's a valid, reliable study.
All right. I think we got a question, Representative Kendrick. Is that you?
Oh, thank you for this.
Yes, ma'am.
My question is, so I know we have in our packet some information. To your point, the research is mixed. I don't think I've seen anything that supports kratom. And to your issue about we just don't seem to have research that definitively says, I mean, I've heard a lot of anecdotes because we've been through this. Would you be opposed to, instead of just doing a total ban, something more gradual like a study committee? And the reason I say that is that I would personally, as a policy matter, rather to have people to have access to this, because we have had testimony that says it's helped so many people, and narrow it down once we get definitive research that says that it fits within the Schedule 1 definition of harmful stuff, as opposed to doing the opposite. Because my worry is that if we ban it, then obviously people using it the right way, it goes away, and I would rather do the sort of the opposite. Now, maybe that, in between time, you put more warning labels on that. And I know that you're targeting bad actors, but I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater just because we're focusing on, trying to regulate bad actors, because I do think there are some benefits, and I don't want to lose sight of that.
Yeah, I think it's, if I would want to stop the process now for a study committee, I'm open to one even after session. How we decided, hopefully for the ban right now. But with the research, the lack of research out there and what's happening, it's still Russian roulette or the Wild Wild West out there for individuals. I mean, I can think of how many people you and I know who are on blood pressure meds by itself. That's what got me this weekend. This weekend really solidified it when I was told, listen, you can be on blood pressure meds and it's a negative reaction. You can just have a couple beers. Not the alcoholic who drinks a case a night or a 12-pack a night, but the guy who drinks 2 beers or 2 glasses of wine at happy hour or at dinner or something like that. You don't mix that with kratom. Yes, ma'am.
So is it an issue of banning kratom altogether, or instead doing better with the warning labels?
Well, I think personally we need to ban it, and then if we have to do a sunset to get the research out there, then that's fine. Let's do some research out there to see where we need to go after that. But right now, I think too many Georgians are getting hurt. I mean, even the guy who is doing it correctly told me, he said, those people shouldn't be buying it out of the gas station. They shouldn't be putting that stuff in their body without knowing what's exactly in that bottle or how it reacts to whatever their situation is, whether it's blood pressure, seizure medicine, whether it's diabetes control, whether it's whatever it is, having a couple beers at night. He said they need to know the big picture. So, and that's why Georgia's still getting hurt by it. I thought we restricted it. We did a good job, but we did. I really appreciate y'all's help. We talked a lot last time. I'm sure we'll talk some more now. And I really respect what everybody did, this committee did, to help move it along last time. But that hasn't worked. And the next step, I mentioned, let's see what happens. If not, then I'll come back. And that's why I came back again, respectfully.
How much time? I didn't want to. I know we got people that want to hear something.
And I'll be around for a long time. I'll be glad to stay afterwards, speak again at the end.
Okay.
Whatever's best for the committee.
Any other questions for the sponsor? All right. Well, thank you. If you'll just
Thanks,
sit to
Chairman.
the side here and wait in the wings. I'm going to go through the speakers who are in favor of the legislation first, and then those who are against. Let me go first. I've got the Northwest Georgia Drug Task Force. I believe is here. If y'all want to come over and sit at the front. You have a choice of mic, whichever your preference is.
Sure. My name is Kent Johnson. Sorry. I'm employed by the Harrison County Sheriff's Office. I'm currently assigned as a narcotics investigator at the Northwest Georgia Drug Task Force. Harrelson. Yes, sir. So I guess our kind of our investigation really got started with kratom. I've known about it for a few years, probably 5 or 6 years. You would go into the gas stations, you'd see these big, these big glass containers, and you were seeing a lot of the powder, you were seeing the capsules and things like that, and that's not what we're seeing anymore. Now we're seeing the 7-OH, and we're seeing the pseudo-indanoxyl, and that's the much more potent version of kratom. You're not just going and taking a natural plant at this point. That 7-OH and the pseudoindodoxil. So 7-OH would be more similar to morphine. In fact, it's about 10 times stronger than morphine. And then the pseudoindodoxil is between 10 and 30 times stronger than mitragynine, which would be kratom. And that's a big difference from. So yes, kratom is natural. The mitragynine may have some medical benefits, but what folks are after is not the mitragynine. They're after the 7-OH and the pseudoindodoxil. And when we go to gas stations now, there's 37 gas stations in Haralson County, and we've been to 10, and all 10 had these 7-OH products and the pseudoindodoxil. They have very little of the powder and the capsules anymore. That's not what they're selling anymore.
I gather you feel like most of these substances, they don't tend to get weaker and weaker over time. They're getting stronger and therefore more dangerous for the public.
Yes, sir. Whenever y'all passed the 1613-122 OCGA, they did put restrictions on the amount of 7-OH. Pseudoindodoxil is not even listed in the statute anywhere, and that is not a natural product. You have to have kratom. You have to have the 7-OH to get it. There's only two ways to get it. One, you take 7-OH and you ingest it, and as the body breaks it down, it turns into pseudoindodoxil, or it's made in a lab. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're making it in a lab, and they're putting it in tablets, and it's basically over-the-counter morphine.
And what is the name of the
Pseudoindodoxil.
PSUEDO?
Yes, sir.
And how does it keep going?
PSEUDO-INODOXYL.
Okay. Would that be included in one of the salts, isomers, optical isomers, salts of their isomers, and salts of these optical isomers of the previous things listed in the bill?
I mean, you can only get it from mitragynine, from 7-OH hydroxymitragynine.
And I think that is, and is that hydroxymitragynine? Is that how that's pronounced?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
And anecdotally, like we interview a lot of folks, we interview a lot of drug addicts, and so some folks were taking, I believe some folks started taking kratom when they were on probation and things like that, and they knew they'd be drug tested, and they would not be drug tested, or kratom wouldn't show up on a drug test. You know, it affected them and helped them the same way as if they were taking methamphetamine. Once they continued taking it, they got addicted. They got more addicted to kratom than they were to methamphetamine. Some folks we talked to were spending $40, $50 a day on the capsules and the powder, and they had to have it.
Any questions of this witness? All right. I don't believe we have any further questions. Thank you so much for taking your time to come here today. Eli Cohen. When you're ready, sir, go right ahead.
I appreciate the committee's time and for letting me talk again. I was obviously here 2 years ago when we tried to ban kratom, and this committee ended up creating regulations. And the reason why the ban is ultimately now important is because those regulations just aren't working. The kratom manufacturers aren't listening to the law. And it doesn't matter if it's 7-hydroxy, pseudodoxil, extracts, or raw kratom. The same manufacturers are still refusing to follow Georgia's law. For example, I recently bought these two kratom products that are not extracts. These are regular kratom products. I bought them at Cloud 9 just down the street next to the old Tin Lizzie's where 6 Feet Under is. None of these meet the labeling requirements. They don't actually, this one doesn't tell you how much metragenine or 7-hydroxymetragenine is in the product. It's illegal for this to be on a shelf right now in Georgia, and it is just a mile down the street from here. It took me no time at all to buy these. Even for products like OPMS, which is a product that I am still currently suing across this country, a product named Opium, OPM. They updated their label. They still refuse to tell you exactly how much metragenine or 7-hydroxymetragenine is in their product. They use symbols like less than or more than to give an estimate. They still refuse, despite the law requiring it, to say who they are. The law requires the name of the distributor or manufacturer. Instead, they use made-up, unregistered, untrademarked DBAs. And instead of listing a physical address as the law requires, it lists a mailbox in California that nobody answers and no one works at. These products continue. And by the way, this is a product that is certified by the American Kratom Association. They won't tell you who they are and what's in their product, and that's why all kratom should go. Now, the other side is going to try to boogeyman you with 7-OH and 7-hydroxyl, and that absolutely is a problem. The issue is that this committee, when they amended the bill last year, they put regulations on 7-OH. Currently, the law says that no product can have more than 0.5 milligram per gram of 7-OH and no more than 1 milligram of 7-OH in a serving. So what did Georgia get? Georgia's the only state that I know of that gets these. Georgia got pseudodoxil products. That's what my friends over in the law enforcement community were talking about. And pseudodoxil is a fully synthetic product. The law already bans fully synthetic products. The issue is it doesn't exactly name pseudodoxil, so retailers and manufacturers just ignore that part. They say, well, whatever, it's not exactly named. The issue is even worse than that, though, because while pseudodoxil is incredibly dangerous, what I actually found is that these companies make 7-OH products and sell them in other states, and all they've actually done is take a product that is a 7-OH product, label it pseudodoxil, and sell it to Georgians. And how do I know that? Well, because I bought them, and then I just sent them down to Christopher McCurdy, Dr. McCurdy, who's the leading researcher on kratom, who the AK will tell you, kratom advocates will tell you that. And I had them actually test the products. And so when those tests come back, what I actually get in products like this is that it has almost no pseudodoxil, 0.74 milligrams per tablet, and instead has 35 milligrams per tablet of 7-hydroxymetragine. This is 35 times more than the product that is allowed. It doesn't
Than the legal limit.
Than the legal limit, and it's also hidden from consumers, right? The back of this product says pseudodoxil, says nothing about 7-OH, and I have product after more products in my bag where I bought them, sent them down to the lab for testing, and it was a lie about what's actually on the label. That's the industry we're seeing. We're seeing an industry that attempts to skirt the law, hide what's actually in their product from consumers, and continually kills people. I guess most of you already know who I am, but I'm a lawyer and I sue kratom companies because their product keeps killing people, and you're going to hear from some of those people, and they keep causing a lot of addictions. They've had their chance. They refuse to comply with the bills that you've written and this body has passed. This is a dangerous product, and it's time that it be banned. Now, what's the other side going to say? It helps a lot of people. And by the way, there was just this amazing new research that just came out since the last time we talked. Let's talk about those 2 pieces of research that just came out. They're going to tell you about 2 pieces of research. They're going to first tell you about the FDA's single ascending dose study, in which about 20 people, healthy adults, who had previously used kratom or an opiate, had 1 dose of kratom at different levels. That is, some people had a lower level, some people had a higher level. In that study, they did not find any significant serious adverse events. I think some people had nausea and headaches. And that makes sense, right? These are people who had used opiates before that had only 1 dose. That's not how people are using this product, 1 dose from healthy adults. I don't want to knock that study or the next one I'm going to talk about. This is exactly what should be happening with kratom. There should be dosage studies in humans for kratom. The problem is what the industry is asking you to do is until they've actually done all the research, they say just keep selling it. Let all the Georgians be the guinea pigs while we keep paying for research. That's not how it's supposed to go. They're supposed to come to market with proof that it's safe, not the other way around. The second study, and I'll get out of here in just a second. The second study was conducted by a company called NP Pharma and Johnson Food. Also owners, the individuals who own and manage those companies are the same ones behind these brands of kratom. In that study, 49 individuals were dosed with Mitraleaf, or a brand of raw kratom powder. Again, these were younger individuals selected as healthy adults. In that study, some individuals were given a single dose, and some individuals were given multiple doses over 14 days. Their conclusion from that study, after people were given kratom for 14 days and then monitored for another 3 weeks, was that this novel single and multiple dose randomized placebo-controlled double-blind study showed that M. speciosa derived Mitraleaf was safe and well tolerated at the dose range tested, with no evidence of meaningful abuse potential or withdrawal. That's from their study. What that conclusion seems to ignore is that several individuals were withdrawn from the study for adverse events, including headache, nausea, and vomiting. At least 1 individual, an hour after being dosed with the kratom product, had fainted and had seizure-like activity, which the study just seems to ignore. It says it was too short for us to study and moves on. I'm sure they will characterize that event differently than I am right now. But the fact is, out of 49 people, at least one person had a seizure, and several others were sick enough to withdraw from the study. Again, I don't want to knock these studies. They need to happen in order to understand the right dosage that a person can take of kratom. But right now, that's just not known, and that's not an excuse to leave the product on the market. And again, that study was funded by the kratom industry. All the researchers were paid by the kratom industry. Again, I implore you to ban this product. You know, when one day the kratom industry can come back to you and say that we know that taking 500 milligrams of raw kratom powder won't harm you, and no matter what drugs you're taking, or these are the specific warnings that you should have, maybe there's a time to reconsider certain kratom products on the market. But as they keep trying to hide from the law, disobey the law, sell actually dangerous products and hiding what's in them, it has no business being on the market. And I implore you to do pass this bill, please.
Thank you. One question: do other states ban?
I believe 6 other states currently ban kratom. I could look at that to confirm, but it's several ban kratom. There's other states I believe currently considering a ban this session. This year.
All right. Representative Kendrick, I think you were.
Thank you. Can I see a copy of your packaging?
Yeah.
And then my follow-up question is,
Do you want of these?
is with the warning label, I'm specifically looking at like what the back of it says. And then my follow-up question is your testimony getting at that we should ban it because it's being abused, or universally there is just a bad product that people should not be using under any circumstances? Because I think that's the nuance that I am trying to understand.
So it should be banned because it is not a product that is understood well enough that people can use it safely. Yes, I'm sure that there are people who will probably testify today that they have been using kratom safely for years. But the fact of the matter is, there haven't been the long-term chronic studies into kratom like there are for other drugs. They're going to tell you that, look, we did the gold standard of testing. We did 2 weeks double-blind placebo study. That's the kind of stuff they do for medicines. There isn't a pharmaceutical company that I know of that is going to release a drug into the wild after a single 2-week study. So they want to claim all the benefits of we're just a natural leaf, while then telling you that people use it like a drug. It's a drug. We should treat it like a drug. And the right way to treat it like a drug today is to schedule it until such time that there's actually enough research to know exactly when and how and if it's safe. And of course, the other reason, as I said, about these companies, the companies that I keep seeing over and over again refuse to follow the laws you pass. The retailers refuse to follow the laws you pass. I had a potential client email my office last week telling me that they got addicted to 7-OH, and that the gas station they were at sold it under the counter. They could only take cash for it. They had a hand log, and they had to list it in the register as lottery tickets. This is constantly what we're seeing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for giving your testimony. And thank you, Representative Townsend. If in the case that Georgia does not present a ban for this substance, would you feel okay for there to be at least on the manufactured packaging some type of a exculpatory clause to, just say, hey, there's very serious inherent risks of death by taking this product, in as much to leave the liability, the responsibility upon the person that actually chooses to purchase it, being that they are at a certain age. I know you mentioned that there's some that actually are not following the law, but just it would, in the case that you can't get an outright ban, would that be a measure that you would consider reasonable?
I wouldn't, and the reason is that some kratom companies currently do that now. So, for example, since you guys passed the first bill and we started suing this company, the small bottles now come in this box. they now come with this little pamphlet of warnings, kind of like what you're talking about, and they even tell you. I mean, it says, let's see, I'll find it in here. Where is it? Let's see. I want to find the exact language that they use. It's taking too long. They tell you in the products now, like, this can essentially kill you. This can cause seizures. But if they know that, why is it being sold? And even then, like, so they put in this little label, hoping that I can't sue them next time. And then what they do is they sell a bottle. This bottle, according to the label, has 216 milligrams of metragine. The current limit in Georgia per serving is 150. So what do? They tell you that this bottle, 8.8 milliliters, is now 2 servings. You know, they say just take 4.4 milliliters. I can give my daughter more Tylenol, my 7-year-old, than you're supposed to take of this in a 24-hour period, they tell you. So they just keep doing things to skirt the law in order to make. So I don't think that does the job, because what they're doing is because they're essentially tricking consumers. They know that the person's only going to take this entire bottle. That's why they sell it this way. If they wanted to, they could sell it, in single doses, and that's exactly what they're doing. Right, this bottle, if you go to any store, is going to run something between $20 to $25 per. Wholesale gas stations and smoke shops get this for about $15 per. So the margins on this addictive product are fantastic. And by the way, you're selling essentially an opiate. So they're just we're facilitating legal drug dealing in our stores, and it just needs to stop.
Thank you.
Any follow-up?
Just one last, Mr. Chairman. So, in hearing the request for there to be more studies done on this until it can actually be acceptable, is there any particular product that actually is available now that is likely has demonstrated the same level of considerable risk, but is still being made available after studies have been conducted? And because I think from this, outside of a ban, if it actually has to be something that will be upon store shelves, what it will be acceptable with respect to what those studies should show in order for it to allow it to actually be on sale.
I understand. So I think I understand your question is what is it going to take to get it to be legal? And I think the answer is long-term chronic studies of both healthy and non-healthy individuals, and understanding how it reacts with different drugs. And so the answer is just long enough human-based studies.
But more specifically, is there a product that is as potent as kratom that has presented, has to your mind, that you can recall that actually has, after just maybe a brief period of studies that we're looking at, is actually being made available that is actually similar?
I don't know of any. Like, I would think that the only thing comparable would be some kind of prescribed drug, not anything that shows up in gas stations.
Thank you.
I'm sure there's tried to be comparisons to like this and how marijuana law took off. But the reality is, like, spice was banned for a reason. It took a while to catch up to that kind of stuff. And in fact, the same individual who makes this product and owns these companies was sued by Chase Burnett's family. Chase Burnett is the name of the law that bans synthetic weed. His family sued him for making the synthetic weed that killed him. There's any comparison to kratom and marijuana, it's spice, and that should also be banned.
All right. Any further questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Cohen. We appreciate your testimony. Is it Patrick? Phil? All right. Sorry, sir. I should have put my glasses on.
My chicken scratch.
Yes, it is. Okay. Come on up, Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee, for having me, and Representative Townsend. My name is Patrick Filkins. I am one of the faculty toxicologists and assistant director of the Georgia Poison Center. I work for Dr. Lopez, who has testified in front of this committee before. But in addition, I work bedside in the emergency department at Grady Hospital, and I also treat patients with substance abuse and opioid use disorder. So that's a little bit of my clinical background. Came here today not to talk about the therapeutic benefits of kratom or metragine, because frankly, we don't use it in clinical practice nor recommend using it in clinical practice. Just coming here today to testify from a safety perspective, because at the Poison Center, the public safety is at the forefront of our day-to-day and keeping Georgians safe. So, I'm sure, as most of you know, kratom is a tropical tree native to Southeast Asia, but we know it's increasingly sold across the United States and purported as a harmless, quote-unquote, all-natural herbal supplement. But in my line of work, I could do a whole lecture on things that are purported to be all natural, but we get called about them on a daily basis. So all natural doesn't necessarily mean safe. Yeah, among other things. But we know that the modern products are frequently now being spiked with higher levels of 7-hydroxymetragenine and pseudoindoxil, which, as we spoke about, is not found in the plant. It is a metabolite that is formed in the body when metragenine is ingested, but when it's found in a product, it's completely artificially made. But as we spoke about, depending on the study that you will read or can read, it's up to, both of those products are up to 22 times more potent than morphine. And we're talking levels, almost reaching potencies comparable to fentanyl. And
So when you say it's more, you mean the same volume is twice as powerful, or however many factors is powerful?
Correct. It acts on the receptors with more potency than morphine, and sometimes can be comparable to fentanyl, depending on the study that you read. And we know that the effects of kratom on the body are very unpredictable, and they're dose dependent. Obviously the most dangerous being the opioid effects, which will cause respiratory depression and eventually death, but at lower doses as well, it can act as a mild stimulant, similar to an amphetamine, and cause cardiac dysrhythmias, and can cause death that way, especially when mixed with other substances. And we just don't have the dose response studies or clinical data to say which doses are going to cause what effects in which patient, because it's so individualized, and every patient is going to react differently to kratom ingestions. But we do have reports of not only respiratory depression and death, but seizures, liver damage. I spoke about cardiac dysrhythmias. And not only in toxicity is kratom a problem, but as I alluded to
I'm sorry,
before,
cardiac dysrhythmia means basically your heart stops, or it beats irregularly?
beats irregularly, and then potentially could lead to it stopping.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's bad.
That's very bad, yes. But, that's just in ingestion and toxicity. With chronic use, we know that the risk of addiction and severity of withdrawal are very high with kratom, and are equally concerning. Kratom does cause physical dependence, and patients attempting to stop, especially cold turkey, will experience intractable rigors, confusion, even respiratory failure, and there are even case reports in the literature of death from severity of withdrawal, and that's just stopping the use of daily kratom. And in fact, I treat patients with kratom withdrawal with buprenorphine, which is the same medication, the MAT, that we use to get patients off of opioids. We've found pretty good success with that. So that kind of just speaks to the severity of withdrawal that you can get from kratom. We also know that current marketing practices are somewhat predatory. Vendors are using deceptive wellness branding, purporting all of these therapeutic benefits that have not been proven in Western medical literature. They purport it to be used for pain relief, as a sobriety aid, which is very concerning. Often omitting information regarding these adverse effects that I spoke about. And alarmingly, we're seeing new formulations being sold in candy-like formats, such as gummies and flavored shots, in bright packaging, which the previous speaker had just showed you, targeting children and adolescents. It's a very similar story that we've seen with these Delta 8 and Delta 10 THC derivatives, obviously not the focus of this committee right now, but a very similar story that we're seeing. But probably the biggest point I want to drive home today is our state-specific data that we're accumulating at the Georgia Poison Center. We know that this is a rapidly growing crisis, and it's also being mirrored nationally. I'll provide some national data as well. But since 2021, just in Georgia, we've had 503 cases of kratom toxicity reported to our center. And that represents a 66% increase from 2022 to 2025 alone. Nationally, exposures resulting in serious medical outcomes that would constitute either a patient being intubated for respiratory failure or having some sort of invasive procedure required to treat the toxicity or being admitted to the ICU or death. Those cases are climbing 5% year over year for the past decade. And we're starting to accumulate a lot of forensic data. Now, we don't get forensic data directly reported to the Poison Center. We're only managing human exposures in patients that are currently still alive. But if you read the literature, we now have forensic toxicology reports identifying kratom-only deaths. It's not something that's routinely tested for clinically. In fact, there's no hospital in Georgia that can send a blood sample for and get a kratom level, quote unquote, back, even within 24 to 48 hours. They need to send that to a lab such as the University of Florida or somewhere where they have, GC mass spec, something along those lines. But we are starting to routinely test for it in post-mortem cases and are starting to see increases in kratom-only deaths. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm being long-winded, I apologize. But 76% of the exposures in our state have required management in a healthcare facility. And regarding patients under the age of 5, we've had a 400% increase just in this past year. So it's certainly a threat to the public. Our current law, hoping to stem this crisis as it's written right now, is relying on serving sizes and labeling requirements. However, as we've talked about and we'll talk about, it's not really causing a decrease in exposures. We're still seeing an increase year over year. So I do support reclassifying kratom and all related products to a Schedule I substance, which would be defined as no therapeutic benefit with a high risk of abuse. And I apologize for being a little long, but I'll happy to answer any questions that any of you would have.
No, we appreciate your testimony. Any questions for this witness? Representative Kendrick.
My question is, you might not know the answer to this, about procedure. Sure. Do we typically put things, in a poisonous category or in a Schedule I before we have studies that prove either they are harmful or they're not? Like, what do we do with other things that we classify as harmful substances or drugs?
Yeah, I mean, if it constitutes, a great public threat and there is no evidence to prove that it has any therapeutic benefit, especially compared to other available substances. So, for example, one may purport that metragenine has antidepressant effects. However, it has not been proven to be any more beneficial than SSRIs, which have gone through rigorous placebo-controlled trials to show safety and efficacy. So if something doesn't have any therapeutic benefit, whether studies have been conducted or not, and it poses a high risk of abuse, they will just make it Schedule I.
Any other questions? Vice Chair Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are there prescribed medication out there that are similar to kratom or have similar substance as kratom?
To my knowledge, the amount of receptors that kratom acts on is pretty substantial. It would be something where we kind of say it's a quote-unquote dirty drug. It does a lot of things in the body. I mean, obviously I spoke about the opioid effects being most profound and dangerous, but I alluded to having serotonergic effects as well. It also has effects on alpha-2 receptors, like alpha-2 agonists, which would be similar to clonidine. So it's doing all of these different things. Yes, there are individual drugs which will do each individual probably purported benefit of kratom. but with considerably less side effects, with way more data, way more dose response data, adverse effect data. I mean, placebo-controlled trials, prospective, randomized, thousands of patients, all of this cumulative data that is very expensive, obviously, for these drug companies to do, but we can be sure that these drugs are safe and efficacious for patients. There is not a drug that I'm aware of on the market that acts on all these receptors that has been considered safe and effective in all of these different purported therapeutic benefits.
Thank you.
Any follow-up?
No, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you very much for your testimony. I
Thank you
appreciate
for your
it.
time. I appreciate it.
Karen Davenport. And Ms. Davenport, if you don't mind, try to keep your comments between 3 to 4 minutes.
Yes, sir. I wrote it for 3 minutes. Dear honorable members, my name is Karen Davenport, and I'm a wife and a nurse practitioner at Memorial Hospital. I'm also a grieving mother who once gave birth to 3 children. But on March the 18th of 2024, my world was shattered when my son Matthew, one of my twins, died suddenly in his sleep. The cause of death was a lethal interaction of doctor-prescribed medications and an unregulated substance sold over the counter called kratom. Until that fateful day, I never had heard of kratom, even though I worked in the medical field. Matthew was a sweet, kind, and thoughtful young man who struggled with anxiety for much of his life. Tragically, his life was cut short when kratom, purchased as casually as breath mints at a nearby convenience store, played a fateful role in his death. I cannot adequately describe the heartbreak of losing a child. My husband and I watched helplessly as doctors tried to revive our son, only to hear the hollow words, "We're so sorry. We tried everything." In that surreal, upside-down moment, I remember screaming his name and clutching his lifeless body, still unable to believe that the boy that I had hugged the night before at a family dinner was gone. Since March 18th of 2024, I've struggled through birthdays, holidays, and everyday life without Matthew. My family has been robbed of our joy, and we will never see him light up a room with his quiet humor again. And Matthew's twin sister, who once shared every milestone with him, will forever feel his absence like a missing piece of her own soul. Matthew's toxicology report confirmed that he passed from kratom, mitragynine toxicity. Kratom is marketed as a benign substance for focused pain and stress relief, yet it remains unregulated and readily available in gas stations, convenience stores, vape, and some coffee shops. Kratom binds to the opioid receptors like OxyContin, morphine, and heroin. It has been linked to numerous deaths in the United States, with the death tolls rising exponentially. I've poured countless hours into researching the substance and believe wholeheartedly that no family should have to endure the torment that's gripped mine. In an ongoing mission to warn others, I speak to youth groups sharing Matthew's story and to illustrate the real and devastating risk of kratom. And now I'm reaching out to you for legislative support. I urge you to consider sponsoring and supporting legislation to ban kratom in Georgia. With your guidance, we can bring an end to these preventable tragedies. Anecdotal studies are touted by the industry, but due to no randomized controlled human trials that exist establishing safety, efficacy, dosing information, side effects, drug interactions, the DEA and the FDA have classified kratom as a drug of concern. The DEA recently accepted the Kratom Danger Awareness Petition to schedule kratom and are currently reviewing it. As of December 2, 2025, there are no FDA-approved kratom drug products sold over the counter or legally marketed in the U.S. And the FDA continues to warn consumers. Mayo Clinic as well as Cleveland Clinic have identified kratom to have no medical use nor benefit. And the Cleveland Clinic also reported babies born to mothers who have taken kratom are now being treated with the same neonatal abstinence syndrome protocols as those of mothers that have used fentanyl, OxyContin, and heroin. U.S. Customs agents detain imported kratom at the border without physical inspection. Most of the drug enters the country illegally, camouflaged as potpourri or paint tint. Importing kratom into the United States can lead to significant penalties, including criminal charges, fines up to $250,000, and imprisonment, particularly for commercial quantities and mislabeled shipments. It's a great paradox that it escapes this checkpoint, but it's available at every corner market. If it's legitimate, then why is it being smuggled into our country? The military realizes it causes impairment and has made it illegal for military personnel to use. Please consider acting on this kratom ban so that our family members and constituents will not continue to be harmed by this unregulated, illegal, and potentially lethal drug. As you deliberate in this committee, remember there's no higher public service calling than to save lives. I humbly ask for your leadership and assistance. Our families and communities deserve it. Thank you for your time, compassion, and willingness to address this critical matter. God bless what you do for our country and the state of Georgia.
Thank you so much, Ms. Davenport. And we, on behalf of the subcommittee, extend you your condolences. We're so sorry to hear about your loss. Do we have anyone have any questions for Ms. Davenport? I don't see any questions, Ms. Davenport. Thank you again for your testimony. Jeff Easom. Yeah, okay, good.
Perfectly fine. Hello, my name is Jeff Easom, and I wanted to, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I wanted to thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here and speak briefly, and it will be brief. I am, number one, coming as a father of a 29-year-old son that is an addict, but I'm also a pharmacist in my initial career, and now I'm a practicing physician. And I've seen this from both sides as a physician and as a father, and I've seen the absolute tragedy in my son's life. As we know that this bill is going to classify kratom alkaloids, metrogenine and 7-hydroxymetrogenine as Schedule 1 with a repeal of current legislation that's out there. In plain terms, it treats this substance like other high-risk drugs with no accepted medical benefit, and it ends this experiment of trying to manage kratom as a loosely regulated product. And briefly, from a clinical standpoint, I can see the downstreams effect. I have patients, and I've got a son, and I've seen what's going on in their lives. It's a natural substance, and that's how it's pushed forward, or is sold as a tea, is sold as a nutritional supplement. This is a drug. Kratom is a loose term that's used as kratom. Well, everything is not kratom. Kratom leaf has metabolites, actually over 42 metabolites that I've read from Dr. McCurdy's studies at University of Florida. There's multiple ones that are active, and there's so many of them that we don't even know about. But what we do know about is that kratom is used as an umbrella term for a lot of dangerous substances out there, for which these gentlemen spoke of earlier today. I've had patients come in to tell me, most recently I had one about a year ago who said after surgery, I don't need pain medicine, I have this. And he pulled out a card of 708s that the gentleman had earlier. And it took me aback a little bit, being a pharmacist and being a physician, and understanding why and how any of us can go into any facility that we want that's selling gas and cokes and buy a product that's this dangerous. And then I started looking into it a little deeper because I didn't know much about it. And I first became aware of kratom about 7 years ago when I saw a glass cabinet with multiple green powders in it. And I did a little research being a pharmacist and found out a lot about it. But as time has progressed, you know, the existing law focuses on labeling and age restrictions on purchase, which we have seen by the recent presentations. The labeling on that is in a lot of cases error. I tried to buy the stuff myself. I went into 3 stores over the last 3 days and I couldn't get any explanation on what was in these products because I told them I wanted it for my own use. Schedule 1 by the FDA standards mean that there's no FDA approved medical indication or standardized dosing for kratom alkaloids, and the products that are being sold do not resemble any controlled studied medication, are not ones that I prescribe as a physician. Number 2, abuse potential is clear. Patients escalate dose on their own and usually have to get that same high, or that's what the guy at the vape shop told me 3 days ago. They experience withdrawal and sometimes substitute other kratom drugs. Number one, the Indoxil, 7-hydroxy, but a lot of it starts out as kratom powder or capsules. Number three from the FDA terms is that there's current lack of safety and toxicity dosages for these drugs. And yes, they're drugs. They change their formulation so quick that inspectors can't stay on top of it. So they're basically chasing the last drug, but all they've done is synthetically modify it. And they get away with saying that it's semi-synthetic because it's derived from a natural product. And we know that. It comes from kratom leaf, and the active ingredient is metrogenine, but there's 42 alkaloids, as I've said. But you know, methamphetamine comes from a drug called Sudafed. And as I was practicing pharmacy and graduated in 1990, methcathinone, methamphetamines came on to play in Georgia in the national arena all around. And they made that a Schedule 5 non-exempt narcotic, which required signature, but that was an over-the-counter medication that already had numerous scientific studies to support its use as a decongestant. And the argument for the regulation, I'm wrapping it up, not problematic and not prohibited is the answer. This model assumes that you have a stable, well-characterized product and a functioning enforcement mechanism, and I don't know if that's there. So in reality, what we're dealing with are powders, extracts, often imported, no regularity, and sometimes marketed deceptively. And as a state, we owe it not only to our family members but our children to not have the opportunity to walk in and buy this stuff and deal with what a lot of people in this room are seeing. With that, I'm open to any questions.
I think you have a question, Representative Hawley.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It'll be very brief. Thank you for giving your testimony. I was wondering, because you have, served in this capacity as not only, a loving father, but also as a pharmacist, seeing the symptoms that your son is under, having exemplified, could you have thought of anything within the range of medicines that you can prescribe that you think would have been better applied than this kratom?
Yeah, morphine.
Okay, morphine.
This drug works on the mu receptor, which is the same thing that tramadol or Ultram, which is a scheduled drug, works on. It not only works on the mu receptor, it works on the kappa receptor, the delta receptor, and others. And it also functions working on what's called a serotonin norepinephrine uptake inhibitor, which is the other one. But the strength of it in these alkaloids, and what I've read is 10 up to 30 times approaching that of morphine and sometimes fentanyl. But yeah, morphine.
Thank you. And thank you for being a good example for your son.
Yeah.
Thank you, Representative. Any other questions? I don't see any questions, sir. Thank you so much for your testimony.
Appreciate it.
Hitter, is it Goffner? Just have a seat, tell us your name, and give us your testimony.
Hey, Hey, I'm Peter Goffner. How are you doing today? Thank you so much for being here today on this cold day, and I appreciate you hearing my testimony. I'm going to be brief. Again, you've heard from so many people that talk about kratom. I don't want to piggyback off of anyone and waste your time. I want to just share about my former husband that passed away from kratom on October 22nd, 2020. And they talked about seizure, stroke, and cardiac arrest. That seems to be the pattern that goes on with the kratom it's obviously having the reaction to the kratom. So if you hear them talk about seizure, stroke, that's basically what happened to my husband at the time. So anyway, today I'm here speaking on behalf of the families that have lost loved ones, and I'm so sorry for that. 5 years ago, I knew when I was called, and again, I'll be playing probably the video someday, that I was called on FaceTime when the paramedics were working on him. And I was actually begging for his life. And I didn't know at the time that he had taken kratom. I knew he was taking a natural natural product that was sold to him under the false pretense of natural. So, and that's when I start hearing all these testimonies of natural this, that, you know, it's just sold under a false pretense of being natural, and that's not accurate. Kratom took his life very quickly. My daughter, who is now 22, she testified last year. It's very hard for her to testify and relive every moment of that time, so it's very hard, and so I'm here to testify on behalf of my family, and Dana Pope could actually not be here today, and her apologies. But kratom is known for the gas station heroin. I usually try to stop in every gas station along the way from Georgia to St. Simons to wherever I'm traveling doing photography. And when I walk in there is kratom, and it's right next to the Monster drink. My late husband passed away from mixing a Monster drink and kratom. And so he had no clue to the folks who sold that to him. And when there was a deposition, they were asked, how did you hear about kratom? How did you know to sell kratom? How did you get that into your store? And his answer was, oh, I saw a sign at a stoplight that says sell kratom, make money. I said, wow, that's interesting. That's all you know? That's all you know? You don't have a degree or anything like that? So the people that are selling this product have no idea really what they're selling at all. And so I'm asking everyone to, if you have ChatGPT, if you have Google, please Google it. If you haven't even done the research on it, and I'm not saying you have or haven't, but if you haven't, please do the research on what is happening with kratom, I don't know if you've heard, but in Florida, 92,000 pounds of kratom were confiscated down in Florida to make the 7-OH product that is now being distributed. But again, he was not able to do that because it was confiscated by law enforcement. And these are things that are moving into Georgia, that are moving into, it's going to surpass fentanyl. It's right at it. And so if we think fentanyl is bad, this is going to just only get worse. And so on behalf of my late husband and his mom that passed away last week, she said, Peter, please try to just fight for this, and please ask that they please consider passing this law, because it's killing people. And it's almost like a stoplight. People keep going through the stoplight, they keep getting killed. How many more people have to get killed in order for us to stop what's going on and do some more research on what's going on and just ban this bill? Ban this kratom and pass this bill. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Again, we offer condolences on your loss, and thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions from Ms. Goff? I don't see that you have any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Ryan, is it Scaife?
Scaife, yes, sir.
Scaife, okay.
Good afternoon. My name's Ryan Scaife. I come to you as a Georgian, a member of the faith community, and a member of the recovery community. I live in Walker County, Georgia, with my wife and our 5 children. I work as Director of Community Relations at Renew Ministries in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We are a 12-month faith-based residential discipleship and recovery ministry. I went through this ministry 6.5 years ago after struggling with opioid addiction for 10 years. That included pharmaceuticals, heroin, fentanyl. And by the grace of God, I stand here today before you free of that addiction. At Renew, thank you. At Renew, we work with over 100 men a year, many men who come to us from North Georgia, and I'm here to just simply share what I'm seeing. Kratom use is rampant. Kratom addiction is skyrocketing. I see opiate addicts who are trading that addiction for a kratom addiction. I see alcoholics who are using kratom, to therapeutically, who become kratom addicts, and I see just regular stressed and depressed people who become kratom addicts. Kratom dependency and withdrawals is becoming equal to that of heroin and fentanyl because of the ever-evolving kratom industry and the growing potency and availability of the product. I spoke with a gentleman 2 days ago when I got invited to come here who I know has struggled with kratom addiction, and I asked Mark, I said, Mark, when were you hooked on kratom? He said, about 2 weeks in, I couldn't get through the day without using it, and 4 to 5 weeks in, I couldn't get out of the bed without using it. Those were the same symptoms I had when I used heroin and fentanyl. Another individual told me a story when he came into Renew about his local gas station who was behaving more like a drug dealer. In addition to the testimonies that you've heard from several here today, gas station owners, I'm not going to stereotype which ones, but you can probably guess, are fronting product to users. So they have regular customers who come in. They know they have to have this product. They know they're addicted. They know they're going to come back. They take their IDs as collateral. They put it behind the register, and they keep a registry of who owes them money, and they lock that in a safe. How do I know that? I had to go to one of these gas stations to retrieve an ID for a gentleman who came into our ministry. Had to pay off his tab, and when the guy pulled out the list of people that he had licenses and you know, an IOU for, it looked like my notebook here. I believe that stats on kratom use are unreliable and underestimated. I work with countless other recovery organizations and ministries in North Georgia and the Chattanooga area, and most of them are unable to test for kratom because they don't have the funding to afford the drug tests, the 18-panel tests that come with those. We do test for kratom at my ministry, and I'm seeing, you know, 20 to 30% of people who come in with an addiction problem are testing positive for kratom as well when they come in. Our neighbors in Tennessee are working on a bill to ban kratom, and I urge you in Georgia to do the same. You're going to hear opponents of the kratom ban bill who disagree with this, but I believe the widespread effects of kratom are dark and evil. The widespread availability, the lack of regulation, and the lack of medical studies and professional medical oversight and care is leading to devastating and unexpected impacts on individuals, their families, and the addiction and recovery community. And in regards to there being more evils out there and allowing people to use this as therapy, I'll just share with you what's on my heart. Romans 12:17. Repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. So I encourage you to consider this bill.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for Reverend Scaife? I don't think you have any questions. Thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you guys for the opportunity.
And I'm impressed that you have found the time to come down here with 5 children and a ministry. You got a lot going on. Thank you for what you do. Sydney Easom. Good afternoon.
All right. Can you hear me all right? I'm really just going to tell you a story about the addiction of kratom and what it does. So, my name is Sydney. I'm a wife and a mother. My 11-month-old is right there in the corner asleep, so I'm here to tell you about my experience with kratom and what it's done to my family. We were in the halls the whole time before this. So, when I was 7 months pregnant with our child, my husband Landon came to me sobbing, saying he is addicted to an opioid called kratom and that he feels like he might die from it. I can tell you it is only by the grace of God that he's still alive today. I have watched him go from a driven, ambitious, thoughtful, and hardworking person to someone whose primary concern is staying high on kratom no matter the cost. I'll tell you, it's a soul-crushing pain to watch your spouse slowly being taken away from you and morph into a person that you don't recognize. He became very angry on kratom, had psychotic episodes, suicidal episodes, accrued significant debt while on kratom, and during the last year, he attended an outpatient rehab, an inpatient rehab, a residential reintegrative program, and a detox facility in efforts to overcome his kratom addiction. He's currently in a long-term residential facility where he will be gone for a minimum of 1 year. He's missed our son's first Christmas, first steps. He'll miss his first birthday soon, and he's missed so many of the wonderful moments that come with having your first child. I've learned how to be a mother on my own as I watched my husband struggle with an addiction to a substance that should have never been readily accessible at a gas station for him. I'm now raising our son and managing our house by myself while trying to pick up the pieces of the destruction that Kratom has caused in our life. Kratom also caused my husband, I'm trying hard not to cry, sorry. Kratom also caused my husband to become severely physically ill, resulting in countless doctor's visits, ER visit. The damage that this drug has done to my family is far too extensive to be captured in just a few minutes. It's robbed me of some of the most precious moments of my married life, moments I'll never get back. And at times, I don't know if I'll ever truly even get my husband back to the person I married. But still, I'm proud of him for getting the treatment he needs and continuing to fight every day to remove Kratom from his life. But you know, if you are here today and you believe that Kratom is harmless or that it doesn't require regulation, I ask you to consider whether you would feel the same if your family was wrecked because of something you can pick up at a gas station everywhere you go. But that's all.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I know that was a challenging testimonial to give. Do we have any questions for Ms. Eason? I don't see any questions. Thank you so much for talking to us today. Jonathan McMillan. Good afternoon,
How you
sir.
doing, Chair? Thank you for having me today. I'm here to speak to you about the the effects that Kratom's had on my son, 29-year-old, healthy, loved working out, married, got 3 beautiful children, and me and his mom drove all the way from South Georgia up here to share our story with you. So, so it happened about 3 years ago. He had hurt his back at work, and a guy had, he said, "Here, take this. This will help you." Not know what it is. My son has struggled with alcohol. So mixing that with the Kratom, what I've learned is even worse than it being by itself. So, you know, us living 4 hours away from him, he lives in Gay, Georgia, you know, the first call we get is he's having a seizure. So his mom and I, we don't know what's going on, and the doctors they don't know. So as time progressed, I'd say within 3 years, he's had over 20 seizures. That's just the ones we know about. And one day, I've encountered him 2 times having one. One day, we was having a family outing, and his twin sisters come to me and said, "Daddy, Hunter's not breathing." So I go over there, try to help him. I've been in law enforcement for 14 years, and you know, I've seen a few things and learned a few things about rendering aid. So, you know, but when it's your own child, it's a lot different. You know, not saying that you wouldn't do it for somebody else's, but it hits home. And I'm thankful that Representative Towns has we've stayed in contact about this, because it's new to me. I didn't really know nothing about Kratom. And what I found about it is nothing good. I've tried to look and say, what is good about Kratom? You know, what can it be good for? Or, you know, nothing good. And I'm just here today to just not sugarcoat nothing, but and my heart goes out to these ones that's lost loved ones. I still have our son, and I'm fighting for him and the other ones that don't think that they have a problem. So I appreciate y'all's time today, and I urge you to pass this bill.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Any questions for Mr. McMillan? You don't have any questions. Thank you so much for making
Thank
the
you.
trip. Where'd you
Thank you for
come
having
from?
me.
Where'd you come from today, Mr. McMillan?
Brantley County.
Brantley County?
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you for making the trip.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that. Matt Wetherington.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Wetherington. I'm an attorney at the Wetherington Law Firm. I'm also involved in wrongful death litigation involving kratom. I have 5 very quick points, and I'm going to jump around so I don't waste your time. So number 1 is that Georgia has put the cart before the horse. So in the general process is that a drug manufacturer has to prove that a drug is safe and can be used by people before you're allowed to sell it. Georgia did the opposite. We legalized kratom and then said, okay, now prove it's not safe. That's the wrong way to think about things. That's not how you normally do it. So that's part of the reason why we don't have 50 different states doing ban bills for kratom, because not every state in the country explicitly passed legislation making kratom legal. It's just not legal to be sold there. It's operating in a legal gray zone and is sold in those states sometimes, but they're subject to action in those states. So we are now seeing many of those states who passed explicit authorizations for kratom, like Georgia did, now reversing those bills. So that's number 1, cart before the horse. Number 2 is that we've already had a study committee. We did one in 2018 with Vernon Jones, who then subsequently became a paid lobbyist for the kratom manufacturers and advocated for the passage of legalizing kratom in Georgia. This is part of how we got here. Number 3 is think about the greater harm. Now, what's worse here? Having another room filled with parents of addicted or lost children, or someone not getting their preferred drug for a moment in time until the drug manufacturers can prove that it's safe and provide guidelines for how to use it. Like, that's what we're really talking about here when we're talking about this ban. We're saying, wait a minute, I've got constituents that want to be able to use these products, or I got all these people saying, hey, I think we can use this to help people get off of other drugs. You get all these potentially good use cases. Think about then the other side. Someone dies. Someone loses their child, their spouse. That's the greater harm here. And there's no one saying you can't come back to this committee and say, guess what? We got the science now. We've gone through the FDA testing. We've done the things we're supposed to do. Now it's safe. Let's go ahead and unban it. There's nothing wrong with doing it that way. That's the normal process when we talk about doing good, answering your call of service. That's how you do it. Lastly, there's been some legal questions. I'm happy to answer questions about this specifically as to whether Georgia can put things on its scheduled list. So answer to that is unequivocally yes. You're not required to have a federal schedule before Georgia does it. Georgia explicitly authorizes and maintains its own schedule list. You may hear some commentary or questions about can you enforce it or can we prosecute it. My answer to that is it doesn't really matter. And the reason why is because once you put something on Georgia's schedule list, a whole bunch of other good things happen. It authorizes the Board of Pharmacy to enact handling requirements. It puts in place reporting requirements and reporting tools and makes money available for treatment for our rehab centers. It does all kinds of good things aside from necessarily the prosecution aspect. And I acknowledge that's an open question. I couldn't find any law one way or the other as to whether you can prosecute something that doesn't appear on both lists, but we do have very capable, qualified judicial advisors here at the Capitol who can give us some additional language if that became a priority, which I propose to you it is not. The most important thing here is reducing harm, and putting this on the schedule list lets all the people and all the resources that Georgia has to help people come into play. So pass this bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. I think you have a question, Representative Kendrick.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for answering the answer to your first question, because that's what I was asking about the process. And I'm still trying to get clarity about if the general consensus from everybody that we heard, and maybe there's a mix of it, is it your stance that kratom, the pure product itself, is harmful, or that it's too accessible and people are abusing it? Because I think those are two different questions, and I'm trying to get what everybody is trying to say.
Let me start by restating your question back to you, because I feel like you've asked it a couple of times and haven't gotten a good answer. So I want to make sure that I'm answering what you want. So it sounds like you're asking about the distinction between, is kratom, like a leaf of kratom put out here, is that leaf of kratom dangerous, or are we only talking about what people do with that leaf of kratom? Is that the question?
Not only what they do with it, but are they using it in an abusive way if I went out and, took Tylenol that's over the counter, if I abuse that, then obviously I'm still going to have bad effects, but the product itself is safe. So I'm trying to get an understanding of, are we saying that the pure leaf itself is unsafe, or that it is too accessible and therefore people are abusing the use of a purely safe product in its pure form?
So the answer you're going to get back, and I think this is something that everyone can agree with on both sides, is that the poison is in the dose, is the argument that you'll hear. And determine, like, at what point does that leaf become dangerous? Is it one leaf? Is it two leaves? Is it one glass of water or 500 glasses of water that will kill you? Because you'll hear people say that even water can be poisonous. Mm-hmm. So the short answer to your question, and I hate to defer it this way, is that everyone says everything. Everyone's got an opinion and a take on kratom right now that goes both ways. Some people will say that just the kratom leaf itself is dangerous. Other people will say, no, it's the way that the kratom leaf is being used. Other people will say, no, it's the processing of the leaf to turn it into an extract that's dangerous. Other people will say, no, it's the pulling out of certain, particles of the kratom leaf that make it dangerous. Everyone says all kinds of things. And my answer to you at the end of the day is those other things may not really matter, because we still haven't answered the threshold question of, can the drug manufacturers, the kratom manufacturers, can they prove that the products that they're putting in the market are safe? Mm-hmm. And the answer to that question is no, they have not met that burden yet. Therefore, until they can, the smart answer, when you've got all of this evidence around you that says that it either it is dangerous or it probably is dangerous. And I'll defer. The science is kind of, I'll agree, the science is kind of developing. But when you've got all this smoke around you, I mean, you don't have to jump into a volcano to know that it's hot. We've got a whole lot of heat here. We got parents just saying, my kid died from kratom. My child is addicted to kratom. You got poison control saying, like, we're seeing a lot of kratom problems. We don't have to wait until we've conclusively and definitively proved, oh yeah, this is something that's killing a bunch of people. We've got enough evidence here to say, let's wait and see. Let's not let kratom just run wild in Georgia until we've got certainty. Let's be proactive. Let's do the right thing. Let's save lives, and then wait until the science develops and let them come back and tell you otherwise. Does that help?
Yeah, so to bookend it, you're saying that regardless of if it's the leaf or if people are abusing it, the burden is on the kratom industry to prove that it should not be on a Schedule 1 drug, and until they do, it should be on a Schedule 1 drug.
Perfectly stated.
Okay.
Any other questions of this witness?
Excellent.
See the question.
Thank
Thank you very much. Drew Ashby.
Dawn.
Don. Oh, sorry. Oh, is he not here? Yeah. Okay. Is it District Attorney Smith? You still here?
Morning, ladies and gents. I'm Jason Smith, the DA out in the Tallapoosa Circuit. Have Harrelson and Polk County, so I'm right on the Alabama line. First, I want to thank my guys from our drug task force for coming out. I'll go ahead and tell you, these guys and our GBI task force out there are probably doing more to fight gas station poison than any other law enforcement group in the state. So all my ZZ Top guys, they're out there. I mean, they are hitting it, and they've been hitting it hard for years.
Did you hire the band as a group? Or
yeah, they got a cool car they ride around in too. But I was over here today for other reasons, and I just kind of came in to kind of back up what they testified to. But I've been surprised over the past 2 or 3 weeks to see how many people under the Gold Dome have no idea what kratom is, never heard of kratom. And it's something we've been battling out on I-20 for better part of a decade. I have the first 2 exits once you come into Georgia from Alabama. And when you get off exit 5, which is the first exit, you're not greeted by signs or, welcome to here. You're greeted by about 20-foot flags that say kratom. And they're at gas stations, and they just line each side. And gas stations, they have a gas pump. They're not selling any gas. They're simply selling kratom to folks from Alabama because they beat us to the, banning it. And I'd like to sit here and tell you about all the crime that comes from those gas stations and everything else those gas stations sells, and what the sidewalks look like on those gas stations at 10, 11 o'clock at night. But I know my time is short, and just by complete happenstance, today was Recovery Day at the Capitol. I didn't realize that was today. And as I was about to go into a meeting about an hour and a half ago, I ran into 20 of my local drug court and mental health court graduates that were here coming through. Also, I will toot my own horn a little bit in that you will not find a bigger advocate and a bigger elected DA advocate for accountability courts than myself. I'm a huge advocate for our mental health courts across the state and our drug courts. I've been our mental health court prosecutor for about 6 years. When I was elected DA last year, a year before last, I made a promise that I was going to stay in that court. So twice a month, I am with our mental health court, staffing those meetings. I ran into them. They had no idea this bill was even up. And they simply said, "What's it about?" I said, "They're looking to ban kratom." All of them in almost unison, they had to go catch a bus to go back to Cedartown, Georgia. But they said, tell what they called you congressman. They said, tell those congressmen, this will be absolutely massive in Georgia's recovery effort. That just happened 100 yards from where we're sitting with 20 recovering opioid addicts. So like I say, that was pure God intervention as I was walking into a room, and I just happened to see them walking by, and they started yelling, there's Mr. Smith. So with that said, I would sit here and love to go into the crime that we're seeing that derives from all this, the overdoses we are seeing day in and day out from all of this. But as someone who represents a circuit right on the Alabama line, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to, when you drive on I-20 or I-85 into Alabama, you start seeing Firework City, big firework, stands. When you cross into Georgia, you're seeing the kratom stand, you're seeing the kratom convenience stores. Do the math. But with that said, I held up on my end of the promise to tell my drug court and mental health court graduates to let you guys know that this would be absolutely massive in the opioid recovery of the state.
Well, thank you for your testimony. Do we have any questions of this witness? I don't see any questions. Thank you so much, Dan. Appreciate what you do. The chairman always comments how y'all are out there on the front line between us and Alabama, so we appreciate you acting as that buffer for it. Okay. All right, let's see. I think that's all before. All right, that I think concludes the testimony of those in favor of. We've got a few to testify against, so Mr. Highsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, Madam Chairman. Robert Highsmith with the law firm of Holland and Knight. And we are against the version of House Bill 968 as drafted, which is why we checked that box on your form, Mr. Chairman. But I want to we represent a company called Botanicals for Better Health and Wellness, and they make some products, including beverage products, that are made from the natural leaf of kratom. And I want to say that our company agrees wholeheartedly and supports about 99.5% of what you just heard. So even though we are against the bill as drafted, and I'll tell you why, everything they're describing is happening, everything they're describing is bad, and everybody that is manufacturing products that is causing it needs to suffer very serious consequences. The issue, and Representative Townsend and we've spent a great deal of time talking about all of this, and he understands exactly where I'm coming from. The issue is, we would support scheduling these synthetic products like 7-hydroxymetrogenine that mimic extremely high doses of some of the natural components of kratom, and I'll explain what I mean by that. We would support scheduling 7-OH with appropriate language. We can talk about exactly how to do it. But Representative Townsend's bill just paints slightly too broad of a brush because it actually covers just the plant. And the witness before that said, well, what does just the leaf do? Well, I tell you, to get the amount of 7-OH, which is the abbreviation and much easier to say than 7-hydroxymetrogenine, to get that amount of that metabolite into your body, you'd have to eat 100 pounds of this stuff. 100 pounds. You eat 100 pounds of just about anything, Representative, as you alluded earlier. A number of bad things can happen, and more importantly, it would be impossible to do. When a human being ingests the kratom leaf, which has lots of benefits that we can talk about in future proceedings, Mr. Chairman. I know the hour's long. The body creates a metabolite as it metabolizes it that creates a tiny amount of 7-hydroxymetrogenine. What these bad actors are doing, and what I suspect, now look, every bad experience that you heard about, Mr. Chairman, is terrible, and I don't know the specifics of those, and so I don't want to presume anything. But, Mr. Chairman, I suspect strongly that nearly all, if not all, of the awful things that you heard about that are absolutely happening and need to stop came from synthesized, highly concentrated chemical products, like 7-OH, that are in these tablet forms that Representative Townsend's bill from a couple years ago already banned. Now, do we like enforcement? Do we like resources to go after it? Absolutely. And we've worked with Representative Townsend in the State Law Department, and the FDA for that matter, to put out a consumer bulletin that says, stay away from 7-OH. We assisted, our company assisted in preparing that. Because they're absolutely right, that stuff is bad news. And Mr. Scaife, who said, look, the way they're describing what this chemical does to people is how I felt when I was addicted to fentanyl. He's right. It does hit the same receptors in those quantities and in those concentrations. So I'm not going to belabor the point. We're going to continue to talk about this bill, Mr. Chairman. We would support the appropriate scheduling of 7-OH and other synthetic manufactured substances. What we would ask is let's not schedule a leaf, a natural product that might be made into a tea or a beverage, that there's no way with that, again, without something silly like ingesting 100 pounds of it, there's no way you can get to the levels that are creating these bad outcomes. And so we look forward to continuing to work with Representative Townsend, continuing to work with this subcommittee and full committee to potentially amend the bill to absolutely cover what's happening to these folks that have testified. But not ban a product that many people, and you'll hear more about this, Mr. Chairman, as we continue the process, but not ban a natural product that many people are benefiting from and that isn't causing all these awful outcomes.
Is there a specific amendment you're requesting to the bill?
We would, again, we want to be careful about the language because as you note, Mr. Chairman, we're talking about the schedule that includes LSD, heroin, it's Schedule 1's, that's the serious stuff that other than research, nobody ought to have anything to do with, as Madam Chairman well knows. So we want to be careful about the language, but we would generally support scheduling of 7-OH and other synthetic manufactured compounds that are creating all these harms. Because our interest in it, Mr. Chairman, if I may, everybody came up here and said, kratom. That's very frustrating to a manufacturer of a product that only uses a natural leaf and doesn't do any of these bad things. 7-OH is not kratom. Kratom is a natural leaf product that many people have used to their benefit. 7-OH is a metabolite of that the body produces in tiny, tiny amounts. And next time, Mr. Chairman, we're going to bring a medical doctor who works for our company to give some. Nobody wants to hear a lawyer try to play doctor, but we'll give some more detail on that. But would we support scheduling the synthesis and the high concentration, 100 or more times, of unnatural substances like 7-hydroxymetrogenine that do target the same receptors that morphine and other opiates target, and absolutely need to. And that Representative Townsend's bill, the Crime Control Protection Act from a couple of years ago, already bans. The problem, we have an enforcement problem, we have a compliance problem, and it hurts our market for our natural product. For somebody to say, oh, kratom, well, hold on a second. We're like, wait, we have a product that's helping people that's a good product, and you're calling an unnatural chemical that is banned and against which there needs to be more enforcement. You're calling that kratom. That hurts our market, and that's why we're here, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any questions? Madam Chair Lady?
Thank you. Robert, is this the only product that that company makes?
They have other products, but I would want to get you a list. I wouldn't want to try to do that from memory. But
okay, so that's not the main one that they're pushing.
No. Well, the product that we're concerned about with this bill is primarily beverage-based products that are made from the kratom leaf without synthesis, without concentration, without the type of adulteration that is leading to these outcomes that you heard about.
Then explain to me, because I haven't heard the previous testimony. What does that drink do? Why do people buy it?
Oh, and we'll have our medical director come and testify as to the specific. It has calming effects. It has lots of natural benefits, like lots of natural products and teas and various things do. And it has but it does not have, importantly, the addictive properties that the synthesized products do that are banned and need to stay banned.
But okay, may I have another question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. But does it affect and they can get a high from it?
No, ma'am. I would not describe it as a high by any means, but because again, the high that Mr. Scaife accurately described, what happens when you take concentrated synthesized 7-OH, it targets the same receptors that morphine targets, and by some measures more effectively. But the natural kratom leaf does not do that unless you eat 100 pounds of it, which is only a theoretical.
It just brings up one of the things they've already said. So often, you really don't know which combination, if they're taking other things. But it seems to me if they're selling it in these kind of stops, which are pretty skanky, many of them, just have to be truthful. Most people are looking for something, and it wouldn't be popular if they were not getting some effect to it, whether it be by itself or combined with something else. I'm sorry, we have a long time friendship, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I just have to believe it's causing some kind of that kind of a high, or they feel loose and easy or something. Well, you're gonna have to show me. The doctor's gonna have to show me that it doesn't do that.
Sure, Madam Chairman, and you're right about that. But again, so many of these products that are being marketed as kratom are not the natural leaf, but rather these synthetic, synthesized metabolites. And you're absolutely right that a lot of what is currently available in gas stations and in other retailers is not our company's product. That doesn't do that, but rather these synthesized metabolites like 7-OH, that's the big one, that absolutely have these negative effects. And you're absolutely right, Madam Chairman. That's why people are buying it. That's why Representative Townsend's bill already rendered it illegal. And that's why we would support an appropriate change in language to schedule it while not while not, putting on Schedule 1 a natural leaf product that, for decades has been in use around the world without, it was only when people started to figure out how to synthesize these metabolites that you started to see these horrible outcomes that we're every bit as opposed to as anybody else that testified.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I gather, Mr. Highsmith, what the point I guess you're making is that some of these products labeled as kratom are actually highly concentrated metabolites of kratom, extremely concentrated metabolites of kratom, and should not be marketed by that name. And you feel that the law currently, which was passed by Representative Townsend a few years ago, would prohibit their sale as kratom, but it's just not being enforced?
Everything 100%, Mr. Chairman. That's you got that. Could not say it better. The only thing I would say is that it's not that it's necessarily not being enforced. It's just a matter of resources, like anything else, right? I mean, but 70H is Representative Townsend's bill from earlier already made it illegal. If Representative Townsend says, "Look, that's not enough. We need to schedule this stuff, put it in the same legal category as heroin and morphine and LSD," again, language. We want to see the language, of course, but we would absolutely support that because we agree with Representative Townsend that those products should not be marketed at all, and we especially don't want to market it in a way that confuses them with our product, which is legal and safe.
But do I gather you're saying that striking the word, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, metrogenine from his proposed bill would not necessarily address your concerns, or that's something you just need to study?
7-hydroxymetrogenine is the substance that absolutely needs to be scheduled. It's the kratom leaf itself that we'd want to be careful about, and we'll work with Representative Townsend and the committee to propose.
So it's
make
not
sure the
just
language is tight.
metrogenine itself you think should be scheduled?
Well, I want to be careful about how we would, and we didn't come here with a proposed substitute to offer, although we will, Mr. Chairman, when the chair tells us it's the appropriate time. But we want to make sure that we just want to make sure we get the chemistry right and not ban the natural leaf product, which contains tiny amounts of these things. But the real problem, and this is what I just cannot emphasize enough, the real problem is the body metabolizes this product and creates a tiny amount of, for example, 7-OH. What the bad actors are doing is putting in a tablet form 100 times or more the amount of 7-OH that the body could ever create, and that's where we agree with Representative Townsend. It's got to go. Now, and again, the language and the chemistry of that, I wouldn't want to give you a hip shot on that, Mr. Chairman. I'd want to be thoughtful about that and give you the exact language.
Shelley Cooper.
Well, I guess, so you're saying the leaf does have enough in it that it would be very hard for us. At first I thought you were suggesting that we might be able to say that if it's made strictly from the leaf, it could go and the other could be put on a Schedule 1. But the fact that the leaf does have some in it would, I think, prohibit us from doing that.
No, ma'am. We're not worried about the amount of 7-OH in the leaf. That chemistry is already addressed in existing statute. But again, as I said at the very beginning, the way 968 was introduced, it would ban the leaf itself, and that's what we want to get at. That's all we want to get away from.
And so, are you saying that? I mean, I'm sorry. Are you saying then we could some way write the law where we would specifically not ban the leaf, anything made from the leaf, but we could put as a Schedule 1 the other products?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's it.
All right, thank you, Shelley Cooper. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate your testimony. Jerry Keene.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could I give this to the committee? I know some members have left.
What's left of us, you're welcome to have.
Thank you, Chairman Leverett, Chairwoman Cooper. Yeah. So it's good to see my old friend, Chairwoman Cooper. I won't tell him how long we've known each other, but a long, long time. I'm here.
Very controversial bill we worked on.
Yeah, I can remember that one too. I represent the American Kratom Association. I am pinch hitting because our representative, due to the snow and storms in D.C., schedule change, couldn't get here, but would like to come if the chair schedules another hearing on this. What I passed out to you was what Mr. Highsmith alluded to, came from Attorney General Carr's office, where we work with him, along with Mr. Highsmith and many others, to go after the problem that we're all addressing. We sent in secret buyers all over the state. And not only did we buy them, we've provided the receipts to the Attorney General's office and the location where they're being sold. They're processing all that now. The General did put out a press release and a consumer alert notice on synthetics. I want to draw your attention later when you're reading this, as I'm sure you all will, that he does address the synthetics as opposed to the natural leaf product. 2 years ago, as you remember, I know, Chairman Leverett, this committee spent hours and hours and hours on this subject and drafted a bill. We went to the Senate and worked again and again and again for hours and hours and came up with a bill that went into effect basically a year ago.
Yeah, I think Representative Townsend still has PTSD.
He and I still have a little bit of a tick. So anyway.
I seize up a little bit when you started talking about it.
So we too want to work with him and this committee to address the problem. Number one, it's the synthetics. These products have kratom on it that have no kratom in it. They're synthetically manufactured in a lab without using kratom or the leaf. They're opioids. They're horrible. They need to go. That's why we went to the AG's office with the product saying this is what we've got to do. The missing piece we've talked around so far today is enforcement. Representative Trey Kelly introduced at the end of last year House Bill 757, which is now pending in Agriculture and Consumer Affairs in the House. And we spent pretty much the entire summer and fall working with the Department of Agriculture to get them to be the enforcement mechanism over these products, just like they do with our hemp, CBD, and the other products. A lot of these products are sold in the same place, and they're in their monitoring. One of the things, and they're working on substitute language now to do that, and hopefully we're going to get that out real quick. One of the things to do there, Mr. Chairman, is not only labeling, but put a QR code. We want to require any manufacturer that sells a product in Georgia to register that product with the Department of Agriculture with a lab analysis and a QR code on every product that'll have a current lab analysis on file as a consumer with my phone that I can pull it up. And so we're working on that language now. There's a lot more. I'll let that bill have its own hearing and take its, but we feel good that we're moving in the right direction there to attack the enforcement mechanism with Representative Kelly. I really want to turn my time over to the next speaker, for he's far more qualified. I think once you hear his credentials, you'll listen up, but I appreciate the committee's consideration. And again, we want to work with you, Representative Townsend, to address the real problem.
Thank you so much. Any questions of this witness? Do we have anybody left to ask questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Durkin, Bob Durkin.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate being here. My name is Bob Durkin. My background, I'm a pharmacist with a Master's of Molecular Biology. I was a captain in the Army for 6 years, residency trained at Walter Reed in clinical nuclear pharmacy. I'm an attorney. I practice in the food and drug space. I'm on-site counsel to the AKA, various dietary supplement manufacturers and distributors, including those that manufacture and distribute kratom products. I was also for 12 years lucky enough to work at the Food and Drug Administration. I started off in the Center for Drugs, where I learned how to regulate unapproved new drugs, compounded drugs. Made my way over to the food program, where I spent 6 years as the Deputy Director for the Office of Dietary Supplement Programs. So I was the number 2 person in charge of dietary supplement regulation for 6 years at the federal level. I'm here today to offer my advice, my opinions, answer questions relative as a former regulator who understands how food is regulated in the United States. I think a lot of this is confusion about what kratom is and kratom isn't. And we've heard some things here today, and I'm benefiting from going last. It's horrible to go last because you hear some really sad stories, and as a dad, you don't know how to handle that. So I think it's real important to say what kratom is and what kratom isn't. If kratom is marketed as a drug, it's illegal. Bust it, get it off the streets. If kratom's marketed as a dietary supplement or a food, there is a pathway for it to legally be on the market in the United States. It doesn't require clinical control, double-blind studies, placebo-controlled studies. Food goes to market unapproved in the United States. Drugs require approval. Food can go to market with animal studies, history of use, clinical studies if they exist, but they're certainly not required because you're not selling a drug, you're selling a food. Kratom is a botanical out of Southeast Asia. It's been used for hundreds of years as a natural wellness, a pick-me-up. Legend has it was brought back by our Vietnam vets in the 60s and 70s, became popular in the United States in the early 2000s. One of the ways it became popular in the United States was there was an incident in Sweden in 2010 where kratom leaf killed 9 people. The other pharmacist in the room mentioned tramadol. An investigation into that by the Swedes discovered that kratom was contaminated with methatramadol, the active metabolite of the drug tramadol, and that's what ate their livers and killed them. It wasn't the kratom leaf. But that's where the die was cast for the FDA and its position on kratom and how they were going to approach it. From there, you had import alerts. Myself, when I was in charge in 2015, authorized the seizure of kratom based on the information I have. In hindsight now, that probably wasn't the best decision because there is a good body of science out there about the safety of kratom. Companies have satisfied the pre-market responsibilities of the Food and Drug Administration by filing at least 7 new dietary ingredient notifications to the Food and Drug Administration. This is where a manufacturer or distributor puts together information about their manufacturing to show that they can make it the right way. They put together information about the safety of the product to show that it's reasonably expected to be safe the way they manufacture it and sell it. Kratom is a botanical. The word kratom has come to include so many things. The leaf, the ground leaf, an extract taken from that leaf. Unfortunately now it's also come to include things like 7-hydroxymetragenine, pseudoindoxyl, and other metabolites. We talked a lot about habit and addiction, and that is a very complicated science. There are other experts that can counsel on that, but I'm pretty sure I have a habit for coffee or addicted to coffee. Today when I went to your commissary and there was no coffee at noon, I panicked a little. And I'm not making light of anything, but it's a very complicated spectrum of science. To draw the analogy of what's happened to kratom, you could take a coffee bean, you could grind it up. That's a crushed coffee bean. You can make an extract of it. We call that a pot of coffee. That pot of coffee contains caffeine. If somebody were to pull that caffeine out of the pot of coffee and chemically alter it, usually with pool chemicals, pool chemicals, and turn it into something different, that's what 7-hydroxymetragenine is. Folks are then taking that 7-hydroxymetragenine and selling it, sometimes calling it 7-hydroxy, sometimes calling it something else, sometimes calling it kratom. 7-hydroxymetragenine is not found naturally in the leaf. It only develops in the leaf after the leaf is plucked from the tree, and metragenine oxidizes into 7-hydroxy. A very, very small amount of 7-hydroxy is in the leaf because of that oxidation process. When you eat kratom, when you eat a kratom leaf, or when you ingest metragenine, the primary alkaloid from kratom, your liver metabolizes it into a lot of things, one of which is 7-hydroxymetragenine. That's the way your body works. You ingest things, it metabolizes them into things it knows how to excrete or get out. 7-hydroxymetragenine is 15 times more potent than opium, 15 times more potent than morphine. It attaches to the mu-opioid receptor and does not let go like other drugs do. In addition to that, the ER surgeon, he might be gone now, mentioned how complicated the pharmacology is. He was talking about 7-hydroxymetragenine. It attaches to so many different receptors in the brain, you can't even keep track of it. So I think right now what you have is a problem where you're regulating and you have a choice to ban. My experience is that when you ban something, you drive it into the shadows. You drive it to the lowest common denominator. It's not going to go away. It's going to be in your cities, in your state. It's going to come in from out of state. People are going to find a way to sell it because they make money on it. What's going to happen is quality is going to drop. It's not going to be made the right way. It's not going to be labeled the right way. You're going to go back to the days when kratom was sold in baggies with Sharpie marker on it about what it was. People are going to get sick. People are going to die. There are no conditions for use. You're better off regulating it and controlling it. I don't think you have a regulation problem. I think you have an enforcement problem. You've already made it illegal to sell 7-hydroxymetragenine. You've already made it illegal to sell kratom that has more than 150 milligrams of metragenine in a serving. It seems like you just need to enforce it. As far as the proposed ban or scheduling, DEA looked at scheduling kratom, not actually kratom, metragenine and 7-hydroxymetragenine twice. It failed twice. Right now, on July 29th, the Food and Drug Administration, Secretary Kennedy and Commissioner McKay stood on a podium with the DEA administrator and announced they were going to schedule 7-hydroxy. It was profound. Nothing like has ever happened in American health history. It's remarkable. They pointed to a chart with waves of the heroin epidemic and how it's transitioned from different drugs. And they pointed to a cross line on the chart where we were coming down from fentanyl and we're going up for 7-hydroxy. And they said, this is where we're at in time and we're going to stop it. Right now you have a 7-hydroxy problem, you have a pseudoindoxil problem, you have the next IT problem. If you're going to ban something, you could probably do what's called an 8-factor or 7-factor analysis. You found it in your code of regulations there, and it looks at different factors. And those factors are what decides when something gets put into a schedule. They're very complicated factors. If you want a 7-factor, 8-factor analysis on 7-hydroxy, I'll get it to you. If you want a 7-factor, 8-factor analysis on mitragynine, I'll get it to you. If you want one on kratom leaf, I'll get it to you. I strongly encourage you to schedule 7-hydroxy and the other metabolites, but I strongly encourage you to regulate kratom and enforce against the bad players while giving consumers an opportunity to choose and buy good products.
So when you say regulate kratom, are you talking about mitragynine, or is that another, what's the
It's
word?
an
Metabolite.
alkaloid. It's an alkaloid. So the other pharmacist mentioned that there's 42 alkaloids. Might even be more than that now. It
Which
seems-
means what?
An alkaloid is a molecule with a nitrogenous base and then a structure from there, and they're all kind of
So
similar.
is that something your body creates as a result of something else?
No, it's something, well, yes, but it's also something that your body pulls out of kratom. There are about
Okay.
42 of them in the kratom leaf. Sort of like caffeine's not the only thing in coffee, but it's what we all want. The alkaloids are the things in kratom that give the effect that you were asking about, the general wellness, the anti-anxiety, the pick-me-up. A lot of people use kratom to replace coffee. A lot of people use kratom for mild pain. Some people reportedly use kratom as manage withdrawal from drugs. I don't understand that. That science is beyond me. Addiction science is very, very complicated. So to answer your question, mitragynine is the primary alkaloid in kratom. It makes up about 65% of the alkaloid profile. What folks have learned to do over time is to take the kratom leaf and do an extraction of the kratom leaf to isolate those alkaloids, because that's what gives you the sensations, the benefits that you asked about, and they sell those as a kratom extract. Both of those qualify as dietary ingredients under the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, Section 201 FF1, a botanical or other herb or a constituent metabolite of a botanical or other herb. So kratom is a dietary ingredient, and an extract of kratom is a dietary ingredient that based on other parts of the regulation, can legally be sold without FDA approval.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions?
I went really quick there. I'm sorry. I'm nervous, and I wasn't sure how much
No,
time
we
I'd have.
appreciate quick. Representative Neal?
Thank you to the chair. And so, yeah, just to make some general comments, like I know we've debated this ad nauseum prior to today. He's smiling over there. And literally almost rewrote this bill in the prior version that has already passed. And I thought, to your point, we'd already addressed a lot of the issues, and we just need to enforce those issues, because we want to be careful, especially in this committee and a few others, where we, because we had a lot of testimony of how this helps so many people.
Yeah.
But then on one side, those that abuse it, us trying to schedule a certain way for people that, have some type of addiction, and ignore the people that have demonstrated how this has helped them in a way when they are responsible with using it. So I just wanted to make that statement, but thank you for coming today.
No, ma'am, it's a good point. And your bill right now, it's pretty good. I mean, you limit the amount of mitragynine. You're not allowed to have 7-OH or metabolites. If you wanted to schedule or ban 7-hydroxy, I would suggest you do it on a parts per million basis. It was one of the things that was being wrestled with here with one of the other witnesses. How would you schedule it? The state of Florida scheduled it based on parts per million. They said 400 parts per million on dry weight. Anything that has over that is considered 7-hydroxy and is scheduled. That's based in pretty good science. 400 might be a little bit too low of a number. The dry weight basis is a good idea, but you can certainly schedule 7-hydroxy in an effective way. Florida's done it.
Charlie Cooper.
Okay. I'm not a lawyer, but I do want to say, isn't it true? I get to play a lawyer. Isn't it true that when you say, oh, well, this can be, it's just a food substance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the FDA doesn't regulate it. We have had trouble over the last 30, 40 years with concerns about vitamins and all sorts of things that are labeled at foods for whatever reason, but that do have harmful side effects.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so just saying that just because this one can be, labeled a food, it doesn't have harmful effects, and that's getting into a real iffy
It is.
situation.
I can give you a good example. If I sell an orange and I sell you that orange for its vitamin C content, buy Bob's Orange, it's high in vitamin C. Now that I've sold that vitamin C like that, vitamin C is a food. If I sell you a product and I say this has 500 milligrams of vitamin C, it's going to support your immune system, I just sold a dietary supplement. If I sell you vitamin C to prevent or cure scurvy, I just sold you a drug. So a lot of what the it is and a lot about how the it is regulated is based on the objective intent of the party putting in commerce. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I would say it's based less on intent as on an objective representation about what it will do.
Right.
I think you're right, and it's the objective representation of that intent on the label and labeling. What do they say about the product? What's the deal being made?
Right. Yeah, what my representation about it determines how it's classified,
Yes, sir.
and then it determines the regulatory
Exactly.
structure, at least at the federal level. I'm assuming is what you're talking about primarily.
I'd have to look at Georgia, but it's probably pretty close. A lot of states have incorporated the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act in part or in full, so it's likely Georgia does it pretty similar.
Okay. Any other questions of this witness? All right. Thank you so much for your testimony. Appreciate it. All right, Jennifer Martin. Were you trying to tell me something? No. Okay. Good afternoon.
My fellow Georgians. Hope everyone is well. I wrote everything down. I hope that's okay. I'm nervous and antsy right now. But good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Jen. I'm a mother, a person in long-term recovery, and someone whose life was saved by natural kratom leaf. In 2006, I was prescribed opiate pain medication by my doctor, was started as a legitimate treatment, slowly turned into addiction, and eventually escalated into illegal opioids, including fentanyl. I lost everything, and most painfully, I lost my husband to fentanyl. After his death, I entered recovery treatment, and that's when I found natural kratom leaf. I have been clean for almost 4 years. I have my kids back. I've held the same job for 4 years, which that was impossible for me to do before. And I'm in school working towards my master's in psychology to become a substance abuse counselor. This comes from the natural kratom plant, not the extracts, not the concentrates, not the synthetic or high potency products like 7-OH that we've heard so many horror stories today about. Plain kratom leaf does not intoxicate me or impair me. It helped me stay in recovery and rebuild my life. People deserve the right to access a natural, plant-based alternative that helps them stay alive and in recovery, especially when the alternative is returning to the illicit drug market, which is very dangerous right now. It's critical to understand that natural kratom leaf is not the same as high-potency, chemically altered, or synthetic kratom products. Treating the same is a big mistake, and many people in recovery, including myself, actively avoid those products because of their risk. Georgia already has the Kratom Consumer Protection Act in place, which includes age limits, product testing, and labeling requirements. Those protections are working and they should remain in place. What I do not support is criminalizing a natural plant that helps people like me survive while dangerous high-potency products are either lumped together or allowed to drive policy. If there is to be a ban, it should be narrowly focused on high-potency, synthetic, or isolated products, not on the natural kratom leaf that has already been responsibly regulated and helps so many people like me stay alive and in recovery. And I was going to say, so Florida banned 7-OH, and they have left, the natural plant alone. 7-OH has ruined everything. All the sad stories that we heard in this room today is because of 7-OH. It's just, I'm asking that you guys just leave the raw powder alone, but thank you so much for letting me talk.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? For Ms., I'm sorry, Ms. Martin? I don't think you have any questions,
Okay.
Martin. Thank you so much for your testimony. All right, Ms. Girton?
I'm Maisie Lynn Girton, the Executive Director at the Georgia Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. Not my favorite position to be in, because I have not had a chance to talk to Representative Townsend, simply because my comments have kind of bubbled up today, listening to the testimony, and also recognizing that this is a committee that understands the difference between an and an or. So I apologize that I haven't, because I would have if I'd realized, but I would love to have some more conversation, but and to not belabor any of the points that have been made. It seems to me that you would be shifting, if we were to pass this as is, there's a criminalization aspect to it, right? And that's where the and or comes in. My colleagues across the aisle, PAC, at this time don't believe that they can prosecute a controlled substance that's not on both Georgia's list and the Fed's list. And that's the way that they practice. And it's because there's an and in the sentence in 1613-21 where controlled substance is defined. It's defined as the items that are on the federal list and the items that are on our list. Yes. Well, say that again. Exactly. And so just like happened in this room not long ago, we modified how sex offender registry is handled by changing literally an or to an and. And it made it much more difficult for people who have rehabilitated their lives to move on with their lives. And that's exactly what will happen here if we come back, if this passes, we put all of these things on Schedule 1. Whatever gets put on Schedule 1, even if it's not prosecuted July 2nd, because we have not changed that and to an or, it could happen next year, the year after that. And so given that there's an enforcement problem now with the law that you're dealing with, the idea, it's a little bit of magical thinking to think that we would then have adequate enforcement for another drug on the Schedule 1 crime rubric. But more than that, you would now be criminalizing the very people that we're concerned about saving. And that's what we see in our jails. It's what we see in our mental health centers. It's what we see in our rehab centers. We would be just simply expanding that cohort of people rather than dealing with what we could deal with right now with what we have in the books. You know, and earlier during some of the testimony today, I thought if you walked in the room right now and you heard this person talking about physical dependence, heart palpitations, seizures, bright packaging that, draws adolescent attention. I remember, the Camel, Joe Camel, right? We've had this conversation in nicotine. We've had it in alcohol. We have it now ongoing in cannabis and hemp and in vapes. And all of those things we regulate. We don't stick them on the controlled substance list as a Schedule 1 drug and cause all of these collateral consequences. And P.S., tax revenue also gets generated by the things that we choose to regulate rather than criminalize. So I just come to say there are some collateral consequences that I think are well worth considering. It sounds like some of the surgical moves that could be made with respect to really focusing in on the most problematic type of Creighton synthetic might be part of a really thoughtful solution that would potentially mitigate some of my concern, but it's not going to mitigate all of the extent to which we would be potentially burdening possessors and users with criminalization when what they really need is addiction help. And I will say too, this body also, you all have looked at, in the process of looking at vapes, some of the research that happened behind the scenes was that when New York and California banned vapes, a black market develops, and that's what will happen here. And so some of the adulteration that we now, at least the gentleman who came in earlier and could say, this is adulterated, these are things that shouldn't be on the shelf that are, you can see them, they're on the shelves. And so the other gentleman can go in and buy them and take them to the Attorney General and say, let's do something about this. But if we ban or regulate so extensively these materials, it's going to be much harder to do all of that because it's going to be a black market. It's going to be we're going to be back in here having the conversation we had about fentanyl and felony murder. And it's just, this is where we're headed if we do this way. So I hope that as the conversations go forward, kind of this big picture can be kept in mind. And my request would be that you all never change that and to an or in the future in 161321. Do you have any questions for me?
So to clarify the committee, in 161321,
it's the definition. Mm-hmm.
There's a definition of controlled substance. It means a drug, substance, or immediate precursor in schedules 1 through 5 of Code Section 161325 through 161329 and schedules 1 through 5 of 21 CFR Part 1308, which is a federal reg, I believe.
Right.
So it's saying it's a controlled substance if it's on both the federal and the state schedule. Otherwise, it's not a controlled substance.
That's my understanding of the black letter, and that's also my understanding of how the Prosecuting Attorney's Council interprets that in their decision-making process.
And then 161325 is the actual statute on Schedule 1 substances.
Yes, that's being
and
modified.
This bill proposed to modify that.
Exactly.
But I think the prosecutor's concerned they might not be able to they might get dismissed because a court would find, well, even if it's on the list in 161325, it's not a controlled substance by definition unless it's on both the federal and the state schedule here.
Right. I mean, that would certainly be our best defense to it.
Yeah.
But also, we're in a criminal posture with a person who likely has some kind of, from what we've heard today, addiction concern or mental health concern or medical concern that they are trying to self-medicate. And we're in the wrong forum for actually helping that person.
Well, I would push back on that a little bit because I think sometimes the criminal forum is the only way we can get someone's attention, and there are alternative processes or venues, for lack of a better word, within that context where we try to treat and through use of criminal-like sanction sort of compel better behavior and compel treatment.
Fair.
So.
Accountability courts have been very successful. The drug courts, I mean, I don't want to diminish that work. Also,
right.
We could be doing it in a much less adversarial space without having to have carceral measures as the punitive stick, if you will.
Points well taken.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of this witness? All right, Robert, did you?
I'd like to use my own voice if I could.
We know who you are, but just tell us who you are for the viewing audience at home.
I'm Robert Smith. I'm the General Counsel at the Prosecuting Attorney's Council. And that's the problem. Ms. Gerton attempted to explain what my position is after asking me about it and what my concern is. You regulate kratom, don't regulate, that's a policy decision that this body is tasked to do. What my role has been for 10 years is to explain to you guys the consequences of a choice. So if you pass this bill as it's currently drafted, when we go to allege in our indictments or our accusations, we have to allege kratom, a controlled substance. Ms. Gerton and her colleagues are going to turn around and say, no. It's not a controlled substance because it has to be both scheduled by Georgia and scheduled by the feds. And a judge who is tasked to strictly construe all criminal statutes against the state and in favor of liberty is going to look at us and go, you're right, dismissed. So pass this. But understand that then we're going to have to tell legislators or law enforcement partners, you can make all the arrests you want, but we can't prosecute this. It also then puts us in contradiction with 15-1832. That's the PAQC statute that says that a prosecutor can be removed from office if they have a policy where they don't enforce a certain law. So you're truly putting us in the horns of a dilemma. Do we advise law enforcement to arrest somebody on a law that we can't prosecute? Or do we put ourselves in a position of possibly losing our positions as solicitors and DAs because we're telling law enforcement not to enforce a law? Now, something was said about Alabama and how they're doing it, and our neighbors to the west. do it a little bit differently. And if you want to do some homework, y'all are always giving me homework, I'll give it to you. Alabama Statute 13A-12-212 is the beginning of their drug codes. One of their references is to how they schedule drugs. That's Alabama Statute 20-2-23, Schedule 1. There's no reference whatsoever, I'm sorry, Brock, I'll get it to you. There's no reference whatsoever to the federal statutes. So, as Chairwoman Cooper asked a few minutes ago, could we get rid of this? Could we make that and a nor? You can. That's a policy decision. But as I explained to the author of the bill earlier, you're then going to have a problem with marijuana. And you're going to have problems with other drugs. I mean, once again, remember, my obligation here is to tell you guys straight. I'm not going to give you one way or the other. I'm going to tell you what the pluses and minuses are. Because of the way Georgia treats marijuana, which is different than the federal government, then suddenly you put us in a position where we might have a problem with our marijuana codes. So, that's the education. I'm a policy educator, and that's the education I've got for you. And I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions for this witness?
Can he go first from now on?
All right, you have no questions. I think we have a comment, but no question, but well taken.
Thank y'all so much.
Cooper. Thank you. Rick, would you like to come in and just respond?
Yeah, I probably need some additional information. A couple things. Not quite sure about the last comment. I've heard some people online citing some statutes and things like that we need to check out to make sure. Because we want to do everything on the up and up. So we want to make sure if that's good guidance or misguided guidance. No disrespect by any means, on anyone at all. Couple of comments. I know the case in Rick Matthews' death was from a kratom leaf itself. And unfortunately, too, we talk about the pharmacist, and I respect his background. It's an amazing background. He made some good comments. One of the things I was a little concerned about how it's viewed at, it can't be marketed as a drug because they're not allowed to by FDA, or they would. But everybody who professes to take it, is because it's a drug. It affects them medically. And that's why it's marketed. I mean, that's why people take it, and that's why manufacturers sell it. When they tell you in the hallways or anywhere else, it is that. And so I think it's a little misguided if we say it's just an herbal supplement or whatever else. They're not taking it for that. And so, I understand there'll be another hearing or whatever else. I think a black market exists already, but I think we can say more Georgians about going this direction. I think we just need to kind of get a legal opinion too about what the comment was just made about whether we can or not in that direction. So that's kind of on the short end. On the next hearing, anyway, I still want the committee to consider the ban. Let's find out legally if we can or not. If we can't, that's fine. Plan B then, because we've got to do something. If it's not a ban, we have to do something to make it minimally, of course, 7-OH, but even more than that, to restrict it, to make sure it's safe in those dosages and everything else for Georgians. And that's what we have to do. You heard that. I can bring in more. Georgia Poison Control Guide. You want his written testimony? You couldn't get more powerful than that. That's from a guy who operates out of Grady. He works at Grady. He sees a lot of different people. And at Georgia Poison Control, that's pretty strong testimony. So, and the ones who weren't here for that, we need to clip it for you so you can watch it. And others who testified as well, the Davenports, the Easoms, and everything that's happened. And our guy from Brantley County, local judge. It affects all of us.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, committee.
All right. I think given some of the issues we mentioned at the end, I think we're going to let this be a hearing. The chairman can bring it up if he desires to in committee, but I think for now on the subcommittee, we'll treat this just as a hearing only. I think we need some more discussion about the impact of this and try to work that out, see if we can get the bill moving.
I understand.
All right. Anybody else wish to bring anything before the committee?
I think so.
Mr. Chairman?
Just a point of personal privilege, Mr. Chairman, if I may. We have a brand spanking new member of the Judiciary Non-Civil Committee. And so I want to I want to recognize him just to introduce himself, and you know, no more than 5 minutes. Their representative.
I am Bill Fincher. I've been here 2 weeks, so I am the newest person. But this is exciting testimony, and it's something that we've got to find a way to control and protect people from the harmful effects. And I laud this committee for the listening that you're doing, the study you're doing, and I think we need. This is it's life. It's life-threatening every day. Every day it's out there in the forms that you can buy it in at the gas station. So I'm excited to be a part of this committee. I bring with me a number of years of experience. I was a prosecutor for over 33 years in Atlanta here, and also up in the Appalachian Circuit, Blue Ridge, LJ, and Jasper. This is just an opportunity for me, and I hope it's an opportunity for you to have my turn on things, because prior to that I was in the FBI, and so I see it from a number of different angles. But my father's a pharmacist, and I grew up in a drugstore, so I know there are some things, leaves and things, that are beneficial, and you know that there may be a benefit if it's properly handled. So my mind's wide open, except that I stand for those folks who's lost loved ones, and even if they didn't die, they've lost them to what they were to begin with in their lives. So this is an honor for me to be here. I hope I can bring something to the table that will be valuable, and thank you for letting me speak a minute.
Well, we appreciate your comment, and your look forward to your breadth of experience and expertise. I'm wondering why you weren't asking more questions today.
I'm on a learning curve.
I understand. I was glad to have you with us, and Mr. Chairman, thank you for mentioning that. I was remiss in not pointing that out. Well, I don't believe we have any further business before the committee today. We'll stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.